Leo with Orangutan Home Services. Today I'd like to talk to you about the failure modes of the indoor blower motor as related to your central heating and cooling system. There are 6 common failure modes for the indoor blower motor. One is overcurrent. The problem with overcurrent is that it cannot be predicted. An overcurrent is a spike in the electrical current to the motor. Talk to your technician about overcurrent devices that can be placed on the unit to protect that motor from the overcurrent problem that causes the motor to fail. The second failure mode on the blower motor is called low resistance. The windings within the blower motor are insulated from heat. Over time and running conditions, those windings and the insulation, they start to break down, which creates even more heat. We use what is called a mega ohm meter to check those windings and to check the actual decay of the winding and how bad the corrosion or decay has become. By hooking up the mega ohm meter, you can see on this particular blower motor that we're checking the resistance on the windings. And when you energize this mega ohm meter, it shows that the insulation is in the bad range, which means that the insulation on these windings have decayed to a point which is compromising the motor itself. Over time, that winding can heat up because the insulation is not there any longer. That winding will fatigue and over time can break, causing the motor useless at that point. It will not work at that point. The third failure on these motors is just the motor itself being dirty. A lot of times you can see how the motor is opened here at the end of the motor. This allows this motor to breathe and cool. When dirt builds up on this motor from running time, the dirt actually insulates the motor from being able to cool itself. And that in itself will cause problems. That causes that motor to run hot, which causes the amp draw to go even higher at that point. So it's important, just in maintenance in general, to keep this blower cage, this blower assembly clean and free of all dirt. Doing that in itself is just really going to maximize the life of the motor. I can't stress how important it is to actually have this blower assembly clean and free of dirt. If you look in here on the actual blower wheel itself, you can see the dirt that builds on these fins. And that can cause yet another failure for the motor, which is vibration. When the dirt gets on the squirrel cage and on this blower wheel, it'll actually throw the vibration of the unit and the shaft of the motor off, causing the bearings to go bad inside the motor. So again, going back to vibration, it's critical that the motor stay free of debris and stay clean. That's going to maximize the life of that motor. Just a simple keeping it clean will get you plenty of use out of that motor down the road. Another failure mode of the motor is moisture. You want to prevent moisture from getting into these motors. Moisture will cause corrosion, which in turn can cause the bearings to go bad, can cause vibration, can cause the motor to be loud. All of those are symptoms of dirt getting into the motor, of moisture getting into the motor, of the motor just not being cleaned in general. Those are all preventable things, and those are all things that commonly cause the motor itself to fail. One of the last failure modes of the blower motor is going to be overheating. Now, overheating can be caused by several different factors inside the system. One of the most common factors of overheating is due to just general maintenance within the unit. This motor has to pull air across this coil in order to heat or cool the home, and then it pushes the air back into the house through the supply registers. What happens is if this coil gets plugged up with dirt, this motor is not able to pull air efficiently or effectively across this coil. So it is important that this coil remain clear and free of any debris in order for this motor to work efficiently. I use the analogy a lot of times with customers when you take a vacuum cleaner and say you get caught on a shirt or a towel and you can hear that vacuum cleaner motor ramp up. Well, that's what happens when these coils get plugged up and this motor cannot pull air efficiently across this coil. That motor goes into a vacuum, it overheats that motor, causes fatigue in the windings, and eventually will make the motor fail. So it is important that these coils be kept clean. It's important that the filter in the home is kept clean. And that's not just for indoor air quality and for the unit to work efficiently, but I'm talking about that motor. When these things are plugged up and when that indoor filter is plugged up, that motor will stress out and run under stress and cause failure. And once that failure has set in, we're talking about downtime, we're talking about inconveniences, and we're also talking about the expense of repair cost that motor will typically run you when it fails. So again, I cannot stress how critical it is that this coil be kept clean, the filter in the house be kept clean, and I'm not talking about indoor air quality or the other things, efficiencies of the equipment. I'm talking about keeping that motor running and in a sound operational manner to where it works efficiently with the equipment. In closing, motors are a proven technology. When they fail, it is often determined by one of the factors that I talked about earlier. If that motor has failed, it is often due to a maintenance issue or a cleaning issue in the motor itself. It is critical to have that motor checked and cleaned on a regular basis. Talk to your technician about a maintenance program that fits your needs, and just ensure that this system, this motor, is maintained in a proper manner. You're going to avoid repair cost, high electric bills, and just cost in general when you maintenance this motor. If you get to the point where a motor has to be replaced, it's critical that that motor is matched to the system that you have. I'm Leo with Orangutan Home Services. Thanks for your time on learning about the indoor blower motor, and I remind you to improve your habitat.